Your tomatoes are dying and you cannot figure out why. The leaves curl. The fruit warps. Your basil collapses overnight without warning. You blame the weather. You blame the soil. You blame yourself. But what if the real killer is invisible, drifting in from half a mile away, and the solution costs exactly $0? What if the answer was standard farming knowledge for 1,000 years, and then in 1947 something changed, something nobody talks about anymore? What I am about to share with you was once printed in every government extension manual in the world. Today, you cannot find it in any modern gardening book sold on the shelf. Before we open this vault, if these stories matter to you, the best way to preserve this wisdom is simple. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share these vaults with those who need to remember what we forgot. The chemical industry called it progress. The farmers who survived called it the death of the hedge. Across America, England, France, Germany, Brazil, the same pattern played out in just 2 decades. Hedgerows ripped out by the mile, windbreaks bulldozed for one more row of corn, stone walls and living fences turned into open battlefields for chemical warfare. And every single one of those green walls did one thing better than any technology we have today. They stopped toxic drift dead. They stood for centuries against every kind of wind, every kind of poison, every kind of weather. And we tore them down in less than a generation because someone in a tall building decided they were inefficient. I built a complete defensive planting blueprint with the exact species, the exact spacing, and the exact heights for every climate zone in the world. The link is in the description below. But first, let me show you why this works, because the science is more shocking than the cover-up. Pesticide drift is not a theory or an exaggeration. The United States Environmental Protection Agency has confirmed that up to 95% of sprayed pesticide never lands on the target plant. It evaporates, it travels on wind, it moves miles from where it was applied, and it lands on your garden, on your roses, on your tomatoes, on your children playing in the yard. It lands on the dog drinking from the rain barrel, on the lettuce growing 6 feet from the sprayer's edge of influence, on the cup of coffee you set on the porch railing. Universities have measured this for decades. Penn State, Iowa State, Cornell, the University of California at Davis, the University of Nebraska, Purdue, the University of Missouri. The numbers do not lie. A single 5-mile-per-hour wind can carry herbicide droplets up to 3 miles from the source field. 2,4-D, Dicamba, glyphosate, atrazine, all of them have been measured at damaging concentrations far from any sprayer. A 2019 study from the University of Missouri documented Dicamba damage on over 1 million acres of soybeans, not even sprayed with the chemical. 1 million acres damaged by drift alone. And those were industrial soybean fields, the same crop that was supposed to be tolerant. Imagine what is happening to your tomatoes, your peppers, your fruit trees, your medicinal herbs, none of which were ever bred to survive a chemical that was not even applied to them. Before we continue, tell me in the comments what country you are watching from. I am curious how many growers around the world are discovering this at the same time. And if you are not subscribed yet, now is the moment, because what I am about to show you will change the way you look at every plant on your land. Now here is what they buried. The United States Department of Agriculture published research showing that a properly designed vegetative buffer reduces pesticide drift by between 80 and 95%. Not 10%, not 30%, up to 95%. And the design is so simple, a child could plant it on a Saturday afternoon. You need 3 layers. A tall layer at the back, 8 to 15 feet high, a middle layer of dense shrubs 3 to 6 feet high, a ground layer of grasses or low cover, knee high or less. 3 rows. That is the entire secret. 3 rows that the Soil Conservation Service was teaching every farmer in this country 80 years ago. 3 rows that disappeared from every modern manual the moment the herbicide patents started flowing. This is exactly what I documented in the Complete Defensive Planting Guide. Over 60 pages of species lists, planting plans, soil requirements, and zone-by-zone recommendations for every climate from cold, temperate, to tropical. You get the full hedgerow architecture, the windbreak calculator, the species substitution table for every region, and the maintenance schedule for the first 10 years. One access, the complete knowledge, forever. The link is in the description below this video. Now back to the science they did not want you to see. Why does the 3-layer design work so well when a solid wall does not? Air-carrying drift behaves like water flowing around obstacles. When fast-moving air hits a solid wall, like a fence or a building, it bounces. It accelerates over the top. The drift cloud passes the wall and slams down on the other side, sometimes worse than before. A solid fence is the worst possible defense against pesticide drift. This is the part most people never understand. They put up a board fence, a vinyl privacy screen, a concrete wall, and they think they're protected. They are not. They have actually made the problem worse because the cloud now lands harder, in a more concentrated zone, exactly where the airflow comes back down on the leeward side, But a porous wall, a wall of leaves and branches and stems, does something completely different. It slows the air. It filters it. It captures droplets on millions of waxy surfaces. Researchers at the University of Nebraska measured optimal porosity at 50 to 60%. That means about half air, half plant material. A wall you can almost see through. That is the magic. The droplets cannot avoid the leaves. They strike, they stick, they evaporate harmlessly, captured by the very thing they were sent to kill. If you want the exact porosity calculations, the species combinations, the row spacing tables, all of that is in the guide linked in the description. Now let me show you the exact species that work, region by region. For the tall layer, deciduous trees with dense canopies perform best. A hybrid poplar grows 6 to 8 feet per year and reaches full drift protection in 3 years. Black locust, native to North America, is nitrogen fixing, drought tolerant, and pollinator friendly. European hornbeam, hardy from zone 4 to 7, holds its leaves through winter for year-round protection. Eastern red cedar, evergreen, blocks drift 12 months a year and tolerates almost any soil. For warmer climates, Leucaena, Casuarina, or eucalyptus species work with proper management. In tropical regions, Gliricidia and Moringa establish in less than 2 years and provide drift protection alongside firewood, animal fodder, and edible leaves. For the middle layer, choose dense shrubs that branch from the ground up. Elderberry, hazelnut, viburnum, dogwood, ninebark, American hazelnut. All of them tolerate poor soil. All of them feed wildlife. All of them are essentially zero cost from cuttings or seed. Elderberry alone, roots from a cut stick pushed into wet ground in autumn. No nursery, no transplant shock, no money exchanged. For the ground layer, native grasses, switchgrass, big bluestem, Indian grass, or low-growing flowering plants like yarrow, monarda, asters, native sedges. This layer captures the lowest drift, the part that crawls along the ground close to the soil surface. Without this layer, the drift slides under everything else and reaches your soil anyway. Most modern hedge attempts fail because gardeners forget the floor of the wall. The total cost, if you collect cuttings and seeds yourself, $0. The total cost if you buy bare root saplings from a state nursery, about $40 per 100 linear feet. That is the entire investment for a wall that will protect your land for 50 years or more. Most state and county conservation districts in the United States actively give away or sell at cost the exact native species you need. Most gardeners do not know this. Most never ask. This is what the chemical industry did not want you to know. Because if every farm in America planted a hedgerow on every property line, pesticide sales would drop by an estimated 30 to 40%. That is a number from a 1994 study by the Land Stewardship Project, an independent research group in Minnesota. A study that was buried so thoroughly that most extension agents under the age of 50 have never even read it. The few who have read it remember it. They mention it quietly, off the record. They cannot officially recommend hedgerows to a farmer who came in asking how to deal with drift damage because the conversation always pivots back to lawsuits, neighbor complaints, regulatory channels, and chemical manufacturer hotlines. Anything except the simple, ancient, free solution that grows from a stick in the ground. The history is even darker than the chemistry. Before 1945, hedgerows were considered essential agricultural infrastructure across the entire developed world. The Soil Conservation Service of the United States actively paid farmers to plant them after the Dust Bowl tragedy of the 1930s. Between 1935 and 1950, over 600,000 miles of hedgerow and windbreak were planted on American farms alone. That is more than twice the distance from the Earth to the Moon. 600,000 miles of living protection, planted by farmers, paid for by their own government on the explicit logic that the land could not survive without it. Then came the herbicide revolution. 2,4-D was released for civilian agricultural use in 1946. By 1955, hedgerow removal subsidies began appearing in farm policy. By 1970, 3/4 of those windbreaks were gone, ripped out for one more row of corn or soybeans. By 2000, 90% of pre-war hedgerows had been destroyed in the United States. In England, the same pattern. Over half of all hedgerows lost between 1945 and 1990. In France, in Germany, and the Netherlands, the same numbers, the same decades, the same agricultural agencies all suddenly recommending the same removals. This was not a coincidence. This was a coordinated agricultural restructuring that prioritized chemical inputs over biological protection. Every country, every farm program, every extension service shifted at almost exactly the same time. The reason given was always efficiency, but the buried truth is that hedgerows competed with chemical sales. A field protected by living walls does not need as much pesticide. The pests have natural predators living in the hedge. The weeds are crowded out by competition. The wind no longer dries out the soil and stresses the crop. Yields rise, inputs fall, chemical companies lose money. That is the real reason the hedge had to die. Once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. Every modern agricultural problem, soil erosion, pollinator collapse, water contamination, declining yields under increasing inputs, all of it traces back to the same decision. The decision to remove the living infrastructure that made all of it work for free. Now, how do you plant your defensive zone if you have a small garden, a homestead, or a working farm? Start with the prevailing wind direction in your region. In most of North America and Europe, this is from the west or southwest. Your hedge should run perpendicular to that wind, blocking the dominant drift path. For a backyard garden, 20 to 30 linear feet of hedge is enough to protect a typical vegetable bed. For a quarter-acre homestead, 60 to 100 linear feet covers most threats. For a working farm, plant along every property line that borders sprayed cropland. The protected zone extends 10 to 20 times the height of your hedge on the leeward side. So a hedge 15 feet tall protects a band of land up to 300 feet wide downwind. Most home gardens fit comfortably inside that band with a single well-placed wall. Spacing matters more than people realize. Trees at 6 to 8 feet apart in a single row at the back. Shrubs at 3 to 4 feet in a row offset 2 feet in front of the trees. Grasses sown thickly along the front edge, watered in for the first growing season. Mulch heavily for the first 2 years to suppress weed competition. Within 2 years, you have functional drift protection. Within 5 years, you have a wall that captures up to 95% of incoming pesticide drift. Within 10 years, you have a permanent self-maintaining ecosystem. After that, the wall feeds itself. Leaf drop builds soil. Roots break compaction. Birds plant new seeds. Insects pollinate. The hedge does not just protect your land, it heals it. And the side effects are not really side effects, they are gifts. Bird populations return to your land within the first season. Beneficial insects multiply, including pollinators and natural predators of garden pests. Soil moisture in the protected zone increases by up to 20%, according to USDA measurements. Crop yields actually rise on the protected side, even though you sacrificed a strip of land for the buffer. A 2017 meta-analysis published in the journal Ecological Engineering reviewed 40 separate studies and confirmed that field crops downwind of properly designed windbreaks average 6 to 15% higher yields than identical unprotected fields. You give up one strip, you gain across the entire field. The math has been settled for half a century. It just was not profitable for anyone to advertise. This is not theory. This is documented by the United States Department of Agriculture in their Conservation Buffer Initiative reports, documented by the European Agroforestry Federation, documented by Brazilian researchers at Embrapa Florestas, documented by every honest agricultural scientist who has actually measured what hedges do in the real world. You can search any of these names tonight on a phone with a free internet connection and confirm every single number I have given you. None of this is hidden. It is just unspoken, buried in plain sight behind a wall of louder marketing. The chemical industry will not advertise this in their full-color magazine ads. Your local farm supply store will not put it on a shelf next to the herbicide. Your local extension office may not even mention it unless you ask directly. But the knowledge survived. In old farming books, in immigrant traditions, in the memories of grandmothers who saw the world before the spray. The Amish never lost it. The traditional farmers of southern France never lost it. The smallholders of Kerala, of Oaxaca, of the Cotswolds, of the Brazilian Cerrado, they never lost it. Only the industrial world lost it. And only the industrial world is now relearning it. Slowly, painfully, one drift damaged tomato at a time. Now, before I close this vault, I want to give you the warning signs that drift may already be damaging your land. Curled new growth on tomatoes, peppers, grapes, and roses is the first symptom of 2,4-D and Dicamba exposure. Cupped or fan-shaped leaves on broadleaf plants, especially ones that emerged after a windy day, almost always signal herbicide drift from a neighbor or a passing road sprayer. Sudden yellowing on the upwind side of a tree, while the downwind side stays green, is a classic drift pattern. Bee absence from flowering plants that bloomed yesterday and have no visitors today often means a neurotoxic insecticide drifted in overnight. If you see any of these signs, do not assume it is disease. Do not assume it is heat stress. Walk to the upwind property line and look at what is growing there. The story is almost always written in the difference between the two sides of your fence, and if you cannot plant a full 3-layer hedge this year, do something. Anything. A single row of sunflowers planted thickly along your upwind border captures a surprising amount of drift in one growing season. Sweet corn planted as a temporary screen does the same thing while you wait for the slower trees to grow. A line of stacked straw bales even, 3 feet high, slows ground level drift while your real wall establishes. The point is to begin. Every drift particle stopped by your imperfect, half-built first season hedge is one less particle in your soil, your food, your lungs. We forgot. But we can remember. If this video reached you today, it is not by accident. This kind of knowledge needs guardians. Plant a row this season, even 30 feet, even one species, even a single line of cuttings pushed into wet ground in November. By next summer, that line will be living. By the summer after that, it will be working. By the time your children are grown, it will be a fortress your grandchildren will inherit. A fortress no chemical company can sell you, no patent can claim, no marketing campaign can replace. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Like this video so the algorithm shares it with one more gardener tonight. And if you want the complete defensive planting blueprint, the full species lists, the spacing tables, the climate zone guides, and the maintenance calendar, the link is in the description below. The vaults will keep opening, but only for those who are watching. Until the next one.